This week on Faces of Africa podcast, we're talking about death metal, specifically from South Africa. With me, I have Mahia Mutua. He's a sports anchor at CGTN Africa. Mahia, very good to have you with us.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
The conversation today is about rock music through death metal and the impact that it has around the continent. But you're also in a band, so I think it's way interesting because you're in it already. But I'd like to understand from your perspective, what does death metal mean to you?
I think for me, death metal is probably a symbol of independence, of like strength, of being able to speak what you have to say, and storytelling in a very interesting way, because you're able to express yourself in a style of music that maybe not everyone will like.
Right.
It's quite brutal, quite guttural vocals. But for me, that's what I like about it, and knowing that it's just a subgenre of a bigger style of music, which is metal, heavy metal. There's other genres as well, but death metal has always been a symbol of like strength, of like just brutality.
Yeah, I mean, would you call it strength? Because personally, I like soft rock, okay? But when I hear metal, anything metal kind of rock music, I'm like, this is noise to me.
I don't blame you there. I don't blame you. It's it's an acquired taste for most people. Some people like soft music. Some people like heavier. Some don't even like rock music at all. So it's kind of like your own personal tastes. I didn't like death metal at first. I still don't. I wouldn't say that I love every death metal band out there. But it came to me for sure. It came to me much later in life, having maybe started listening to softer bands. But then, as the more I started developing a love for metal music, death metal came under my radar as well. So yeah.
Whoa, I don't think that's gonna be me anytime soon. But let's talk about the origin of specifically this subgenre that is death metal. It's definitely not from Africa, is it?
No. Metal, doesn't. It's hard to pinpoint where exactly metal, as the overall umbrella, came from. People talk about Black Sabbath and Tony Iommi, the guitarist, down tuning his guitar, and from that we started getting heavier music. Venom, bands like that in the 60s, 70s, even dating back to Jimi Hendrix and people like that.
Right.
But death metal started coming about, I think, in the 80s, 90s, where bands sort of started moving away from melodic music and started just making it more brutal, more guttural vocals, a bit more thrash metal, but they just forged that path, and they've been going down that road ever since.
Yeah, I mean, you've really explained it well, but when you take a listen to it, some people do say that it sounds a little evil, a little harsh. Yeah. Do you think there are certain misconceptions that really just are there when it comes to death metal that is actually not true?
Absolutely. I mean, the death metal community, once you look at it, once you get to know these people, are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. There's always the worry that this is satanic music or something like that, but these majority of death metal bands are singing about fantasy elements, maybe a bit of violence, but like more in a more tongue-in-cheek way. Some do take it entirely seriously. I won't take it away from them there, but for most bands, I think it's kind of a way of expressing themselves, and it's there's worse genres for sure,
right,
that are more quote unquote evil. if you were to say, but I think death metal is just more a storytelling element, and it's kind of a way for these people to express themselves.
I like that you said storytelling, because I just want to let our the audience also know that this week, of course, we're airing the documentary by Overthrust. Have you watched the documentary?
I watched it. I actually sent it to the people in Overthrust, and I shared it with people in our band as well, because I had the chance to even meet Vulture from Overthrust in South Africa. So I watched it. I really enjoyed the way, like, once you watch this documentary, you can tell this is a family man. This is a guy with a job. This is a man who, he every day has to go and provide for his family.
Yeah.
But he's also known as like a legend in Africa, in the African metal scene. He's somebody who formed a band that, I mean, commands a lot of respect, not just in Africa, even in Europe. He was a judge at the recent Wacken metal battle that we went to in South Africa. So
that is so interesting.
Yeah, he's a big deal.
I'm commonly known as Vulture Trust. I'm a former police officer. My field is security. I'm now in a mining industry, rapper. I've always been a security officer, so I love it. It's interesting. I'm also a band leader in a band called Overtrust. I do bass and lead vocalist in there, and I compose music as well.
Wow, definitely. And you see his story is quite fascinating, even with his girlfriend or with the family there. Like you said, he's a family man. But I won't lie, like personally watching, I was like, I would not listen to this. But I like the way the documentary was done. But I want to link something that I find interesting every time when you talk about rock stars. They're always either bikers or like they're wearing, or they have tattoo on. So is there any link between these two?
For Overthrust, I mean, there is and there isn't, because maybe in certain genres have a certain look. Maybe death metal, does have a thing for maybe long hair, wearing black jeans, jean jackets, motorcycles. Maybe that's part of the heavy metal culture. But Botswana specifically, where Overthrust are from, they have a big cowboy culture in their rock and metal scene. So they have a lot of people who show up in leather, and they even have a festival, for this. So it's part of the image, it's part of the, it's part of the fun of it. This is partly the identity that people get out of heavy metal, rock, black metal, death metal, It's like your niche, your group, your tribe in a way. Yeah.
Do you think there's any kind of messaging when it comes to death metal? Because when you watch the documentary, of course, they talk about, issues to do with crime or any type of violence. Is there any type of messaging usually in death metal music?
Sometimes, some bands can be more just focused on brutal lyrics, trying to make it sound like, but every band has its own message, has its own voice, and you've heard from like Overthrust what they talk about. He's somebody who's, like I said, an elder for a lot of people in metal. He works, in security, so he has things that he has to say and he wants to say, and death metal can have its own, its own identity from the public, that from people who maybe don't know it as well. But every band has its own, its own message, and I was glad that he was able to get his out through this documentary.
Right. Do you think Africans are embracing this type of genre? I mean, you being part of a band now here in Kenya, do you think Africans are embracing it?
I absolutely think so. I mean, you've mentioned, for example, a past radio station that we had here in Kenya, which was massive. I mean, it was big for us as well. We were played there quite a bit. Kenyans love rock music, whether it's soft, alternative, punk, but there is a big a growth of metal music that we've seen. I mean, like I was saying, a couple of months ago we were in South Africa for the Wacken metal battle, which takes metal bands from South and East Africa to compete for a chance to go play at the Wacken battle, which will be, I think, this coming week. So, and we've been there 2 years in a row, and the scene there, we saw things that we've never seen here. And Kenya has a significant rock and metal scene. Many bands that we've seen. So seeing how it looks in South Africa was incredible. There's so many people who turned up, and so many people who were telling us about bands that weren't even there, from countries from Botswana. We know of bands from Nigeria, from Egypt, Tunisia, all over the place.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Would you recommend people to watch the documentary?
I would absolutely ask people to watch the documentary, reach out to Overthrust if you like them, and check out the band or even other styles of music if you're interested in that.
Right. Thank you so much, Mahia, for your time.
Thank you.